Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Now, what do I say to someone who's just come out besides congratulations?
I guess so. You know, it's funny because people have been sending me tweets and messages saying, do I say congratulations for being who you are?
Yes.
You know?
For saying who you are in public.
But I'd have to say at this point, we should say congratulations.
Definitely.
Because it's a milestone. You have to get to a certain point in order to be comfortable enough to do this. And then sometimes you're not that comfortable, so you just need to push yourself to do it.
Right. But any particular reason why now?
Well, it was part of writing the book. It just sort of came out of writing the book, and I didn't say, oh, I'm going to go in and write a book. Someone approached me to write a book. It was supposed to be this little pamphlet about, you know, brush your teeth, shake your boss's hand, have a firm handshake, smile, be the first one in the office.
Oh, how to be successful.
How to be successful.
Wow.
And I started writing it, and I said, you know, there are enough of these books around. You know, who needs me to say that? Mm-hmm. And I started writing about my childhood and who I am, and it became cathartic.
It just started coming out of you.
It just started coming out of me. And so the more I started writing about it, I was nervous, and I could have taken it out at any point. But then, you know, when the student at Rutgers University killed himself, I said, leave it in there.
The one who was being observed.
Tyler Clementi, yeah.
Yes, and then they put it out and humiliated the boy.
Yeah, and so I said, leave it in there. Mm-hmm. And because there shouldn't have to be people like him. And if I had someone like me who had chosen to live their lives out and proud, there'd be no need for the Tyler Clementis of the world or for teenagers to want to kill themselves because they're concerned.
Well, that's why what you're doing is worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's very important. Yeah. And they see a successful, gorgeous dude like you who says, listen, this is what I am.
What are you trying to do, Joy?
I'm trying to come on.
Are you hitting on me?
I'm hitting on you. You know, once somebody comes
Didn't you read the book, Joy?
The Cows, Gus T Renegade Justice, and for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information about racism, what it is, and how it works. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the broadcast. Today's date, Thursday, April 12th, 2012. So I have been told. We will be back, lots and lots of programs. We'll be back twice tomorrow. The students from the Black Student Association at the Ohio State University, they'll be joining us tomorrow evening. They had the Black Student Center was spray painted, Long Live Zimmerman. That happened just last week. They actually had several incidents like that happened. The Long Live Zimmerman incident was the one that got more media attention, but they shared some other incidents as well, but they'll be here tomorrow evening. We'll also have Michael Anderson. He's with Sovereignty Union in Australia. He'll be with us also tomorrow evening. We have the compensatory call-in this Saturday evening. Spend some time, study session on the book Yurugu by Dr. Marimba Ani. I know a lot of listeners out have the book and have expressed that it's not the easiest book to read, and I would tend to agree with that. So hopefully we can spend some time dissecting her outstanding work, Yurugu, Dr. Marimba Ani, this Saturday evening. Lots of programs, as I said, more to come. We'll give the updates. I want to get started with our first guest. We have two guests for today's program. Our first guest, he has been with us before, talking about the issue of homosexuality. The sound clip that you heard at the beginning of the program, Don Lemon, CNN anchor, black male, admitted homosexual. He also admitted that he was molested when he was a child by an older male. He didn't really touch on whether that contributed to him being a so-called homosexual, but he did share both of those bits of information on CNN. But they were discussing the case with Tyler Clementi, white male. He committed suicide, student at Rutgers. Darun, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, Darun Ravi, non-white male, was his roommate. Very public incident. Mr. Ravi was convicted of hate crimes and invasion of privacy. I think he was charged with 15 different counts. They did not find him guilty of bias intimidation. Put that in quotes. I have no idea what that means. But real pleasure to have our guest back on today's broadcast. He's written about this case as well as about his views on homosexuality in general. You can visit his website, SavesTheMales.ca. SavesTheMales.ca. You can also just use his name, HenryMakow.com, and it's MAKOW, HenryMakow.com. Real pleasure to have him back with us to hear his views, joining us for the second time, Henry Makow, Ph.D. Mr. Makow, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Gus, and congratulations for getting the pronunciation of my name correct.
All right. I remember from the first time you said like tobacco. That was an easy mnemonic.
You're very, very sharp. Thank you very much.
We try. For folks who did not hear the first time that you were on the broadcast with us way back when, any information that you would like to share with our listeners, if you want to tell them about some of your books or other information that they can check out on your websites?
Well, I'll just introduce myself to your listeners. About 12 years ago, I challenged some assumptions about feminism in a course I was teaching at the local university here in Winnipeg, Canada, where I live. And my contract wasn't renewed. So I took my critique of feminism to the internet and started a website called SavesTheMales.ca for Canada. And the first few years was devoted to analyzing what feminism is and where it came from and its relationship to homosexuality. And I collected all that research and conclusions in a book called Cruel Hoax, Feminism and the New World Order. But then I quickly realized that feminism was just a symptom of something far, far greater, far, far more serious, and that is the control of the world's media and government and finances and corporations by the central bankers who unfortunately belong to a cult, Kabbalism. Most of them are Kabbalists, which is also the same as Freemasonry. So the world bankers are essentially Freemasons or Jewish Kabbalists, and they have an agenda, and they're actually what behind feminism. And the goal of feminism is to undermine marriage and undermine the family, and generally undermine heterosexuality in general, and to make heterosexuals behave like homosexuals. So as you can see, I realize the problem is far, far deeper than feminism, and I collected my research on the Illuminati in two other books, Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World, and Illuminati 2, Deceit and Seduction. And I continue to explore these themes on my website, which is now called HenryMakow.com. So that's the introduction, Gus.
Outstanding. HenryMakow.com. In the chat room, I think you can still use SavesTheMales.ca as well if you want to access some of his articles. And you can go back in the archives. I believe it was April 2010, long time ago. But you can go back in the archives to hear Mr. Makow in his first visit, where we went more in depth about his views on feminism and homosexuality and how all of that is being used to promote an unjust, incorrect agenda. I guess to go right with the Tyler Clementi case, a lot of media publicity, a lot of people have been talking about this case, the issue of hate crimes, bullying. What are your views on this case, the amount of media attention, and ultimately Mr. Robbie's conviction?
Well, Gus, I think there's some parallels between the cases in the news today, the Zimmerman case, Zimmerman-Martin case. That case seems to be geared to exacerbating racial tensions in the United States. Similarly, I think this Ravi Tyler Clementi case it also had a kind of hidden agenda, and the hidden agenda is essentially to guilt heterosexuals into accepting homosexuality, and when you accept homosexuality, you're virtually laying yourself open to homosexual overtures, and so I think there's a kind of Illuminati agenda between this Tyler Clementi case, and that is to guilt heterosexuals into accepting homosexuality. And that's part of a massive brainwashing that's going on, and on many, many fronts, to essentially make homosexuality the norm. And we don't realize that this is happening because we identify homosexuality with same-sex attraction. But that's coming. I mean, they're normalizing same-sex attraction. They're making it respectable. Anyone who watches TV or listens to pop music can see that. But also, we've been heading in the direction of making homosexuality the norm for a long time, in the sense that homosexuality is based on gender confusion. And for a long time, they've been confusing us about gender, and as a result, men or women are having a harder time forming bonds, and permanent bonds in marriage. And of course, the way they've been doing this is they've been coercing women into imitating men, and at the same time disempowering men, and basically encouraging men to be feminine and women to be masculine, totally confusing the sex roles, confusing the gender. There's essentially a war on gender going on, which results in men and women having a harder time mating and staying together and forming a solid foundation for family. Also, this war has been going on by means of encouraging sex for its own sake. That is the hallmark of homosexuality. It's dysfunctional. Homosexuals, 80% of them have more than 1,000 partners in their lifetime. I mean, and this kind of promiscuity that an anonymous sex that used to be characteristic just of homosexuals is being encouraged, has been encouraged for heterosexuals, so that now heterosexuals are more promiscuous than ever, and it's more respectable than ever to be promiscuous, and essentially to sexualize human relations in general, which is characteristic of homosexuals, which just makes it harder for heterosexuals to bond and to remain faithful and devoted to monogamy and to family. So as you can see, there's a massive brainwashing going on the part of the Illuminati, social engineering, designed to make homosexuality the norm, even though homosexuals are only 2 or 3% of the population. And but increasingly, all of society will behave like homosexuals. So that's really what this Tyler Clementi case is all about, from my point of view. If we can look into the details of this case, but it's essentially designed to make Clementi into some kind of a gay martyr, and guilt and coerce heterosexuals into accepting homosexual behavior. And I'll just stop for a moment before going into the details of the case.
Wow. I wanted to get your thoughts in terms of details. Mr. Ravi, who is a non-white male, for folks who don't know, again, the victim who committed suicide. And I guess I'll give some of the details in case people don't know about this case, although it's been widely publicized. Tyler Clementi, he was a freshman, Rutgers University. This is in New Jersey, East Coast. Freshman, his roommate, Mr. Ravi, non-white male, so-called Indian, as the country India, not Native American Indian. And Mr. Ravi, he had set his webcam up on his computer. He had set it up so that he could call and activate it remotely. And he saw his roommate had requested to have the room alone for the evening. A male who was not a student, who was significantly older, I think the male was reported to be 25, came in, and Mr. Ravi left. He went to a friend's room, turned on the webcam, and saw Mr. Clementi kissing this other man. And they turned the camera off, made some tweets about it. They were going to do this again because Tyler had requested to have the room alone so that he could be with this male again. Some days later, Mr. Ravi had said that he was going to do this again. Ultimately did not. He made some tweets. Non-white people getting in trouble about Twitter. Again, he made some tweets. Ultimately, Mr. Tyler Clementi, he found out about this, requested a roommate change, alerted the resident advisor about this, and he eventually committed suicide. And the media, they reported that it was because his roommate, Mr. Ravi, had outed him, quote unquote, and posted videos. I think essentially that's a quick run of what happened in the case. As I said, Mr. Ravi, he was just a few weeks ago convicted on many counts. One of the charges was a hate crime. And I just wanted to get your thoughts about how that term is being used. What are the implications for using a term like hate crime? And before I get your thoughts, I just wanted to read a little bit. This is an article that you referenced from the New Yorker. The Story of Suicide by Ian Parker. Very detailed, gives a lot of info about the case. You can check it out online. But it gives an exchange between Tyler Clementi and one of his friends after he found out that he had been, his roommate had turned the webcam on briefly. And the exchange went like this. And then I'll get your comments, Mr. Makow. The exchange was his friend typed, I'm not encouraging you to go and report all this, but she felt it was incorrect what his roommate had done, and he wanted Tyler to handle this. Tyler Clementi responded, why not? Friend responds, because you said you don't feel violated anymore. Clementi laughs and says he doesn't know. He says he feels like he tried to be nice to Mr. Ravi, and Ravi, his roommate, didn't reciprocate. And the friend goes on and says it could be interpreted as a hate crime or the development of such a crime. Tyler Clementi, ha ha ha, a hate crime. That would be fun. White people never get hated. He. Again, this is all in the article written by Ian Parker, The Story of Suicide, where you can see this exchange. What are your thoughts on the way the term hate crime is used in this case, and particularly Mr. Ravi being convicted of a hate crime?
Well, hate crime is it's a very strong word, and it's usually the people who use it are guilty of hate. I mean, it's just basically mind control and it's coercion. It's used very selectively by the people in power, control the government and the media, to basically browbeat and coerce the people they want to change. You never see hate crime used against. You never see people accused of a hate crime against fathers who are being persecuted because they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to be to see their children because of the court system in the United States and Canada, which is so pro-woman. You never hear that called a hate crime. So the term hate crime is used extremely selectively. It's a kind of thought. It's a kind of thought control, kind of mind control, where the people who own the media and the government seem to think it's their private privilege to use that term. Anyway, the key issue here is, there's a couple of key issues here. First of all, nothing would have happened if Tyler Clementi hadn't committed suicide. They were already in the process of changing rooms. The only reason this got elevated to so-called hate crime was because Clementi committed suicide. Given the account of what happened, there's no clear proof that he committed suicide because he was supposedly outed. He didn't seem to be uncomfortable being a homosexual or being known as homosexual, and his roommate, who didn't really care that much that he was homosexual either, and treated him very gently and with respect, and was willing to give up the room. So, and in fact, Clementi had visited the bridge earlier in the year and had scouted it out, and obviously suicide was on his mind. So it seems to me that this Dharam Ravi is being scapegoated here and turned into a hater so that they can turn Tyler Clementi into another example of the victim of bullying, when if you actually read what happened in Ian Parker's article, there was no bullying. Ravi was simply curious of why he was being asked to leave the room. He's 19. He doesn't understand what homosexuality is, really. He's pretty innocent, this Dharam Ravi. He was just curious of what was going on. He was probably curious about homosexuality. Anyway, there's no hate there. They got themselves the wrong person for their hater. And then another point, which I think is key, I don't think heterosexuals should be forced to share rooms with homosexuals, because any more than women should be forced to share rooms with strange men. Would you ask women to share rooms with strange men? I mean, homosexuals want to have sex with heterosexual males. Heterosexual males have a right to privacy. They have a right to not have to share rooms with people who want to have sex with them. Don't you agree, Gus?
Well, okay. Let me respond. I'll play the quote-unquote devil's advocate here. What would your response be to someone who says, now, wait a minute, Mr. Makow, you're being a homophobic, and not every quote-unquote homosexual wants to have sex with every person who is their same gender. You're just making blanket assumptions that are not true and are unfounded. What would your response be?
Well, my response is that I've heard from both homosexuals and heterosexuals that they prefer sex with heterosexual males. And if you just Google straight males, last time I did, there were 90 million links. Vast majority of them were homosexual. And need I say more? It's the same as asking a woman to share a room with a strange man. Is asking a heterosexual male to share a room with a homosexual male. And this poor guy, Dharam Ravi, basically moved his dresser so that he could change in privacy because he was afraid of homosexual overtures from his roommate. Furthermore, heterosexuals have a innate, healthy revulsion to same-sex intercourse, and that should be respected. Why are the prerogatives and the desires of 2% respected and 99% are ignored? I'll tell you why, because the 99% are the real targets of hate here, and they're too stupid to realize that they're under vicious attack by the media and the government.
Wow. I want to read a little bit. This is from that article, The Story of a Suicide by Ian Parker. Again, it's in the New Yorker. If you're interested, I can put it on my Facebook page if you want to check it out. A lot of interesting details. I just thought that was very interesting. Tyler Clementi, white man, joking about the fact that white people are not victims of hate. Very interesting. But CNN did a big special. We started the program with the clip of Don Lemon. CNN did a big special, and they quoted some of the setup for this special. I wanted to read a bit of this and get you to comment on the victim, Tyler Clementi, being portrayed as a martyr for the gay, quote-unquote, gay community. That's what you said earlier. Ian Parker, he writes that one afternoon last October, a year after Clementi's death, the image was projected onto two giant screens in a hall in a student center at Rutgers. And this is Tyler Clementi's image, his face. CNN was taping a special, Bullying, It Stops Here, hosted by Anderson Cooper, who I believe is also admitted to being homosexual. The audience consisted mostly of Rutgers students. Tyler Pacone sat in the front row, and they listened courteously as the floor manager called out, "Are you guys excited to be on TV? And you're a good-looking group." Then coached them on how to express shock or grief while watching the panel. The discussion involving Dr. Phil McGraw, Kelly Ripa, and Robert Ferris, a sociologist at UC Davis, and others, began with quiet recognition that the source of Clementi's despair was unknown and may remain unknown. The show barely mentioned Clementi again. Its primary subject was the meanness of middle school students. Clementi was a totem, but not part of the story. Outside, I spoke to Eric Thor, a junior and the president of Delta Lambda Phi, a gay-oriented fraternity. Bullying is trying to be a label that covers all negative interrelations between students, he said. If you say the word enough, it starts to lose meaning. Just any thoughts on that segment, as well as thoughts around how Tyler Clementi, the white male victim in this case, being made a martyr for gay rights?
Yeah, you see, just what I say, that anyone when the people who accuse other people of hate are the real haters. The people who accuse other people of bullying are the real bullies. This is all about bullying heterosexuals into accepting homosexuality and to actually, if I may be vulgar, taking it up the rear. You know, this is it's outrageous that heterosexuals are basically lying down, if I may use another pun, for this kind of abuse. But it just shows that when you move the goalposts, people don't really don't remember what's really happening. So yeah, that whole event just shows how it's just designed to create a consensus, to make homosexuality look warm and fuzzy, and to make anyone who resists homosexuality and homosexual overtures look like evil people. That's definitely, in my view, what's going on here. And I must say that Ian Parker article was in the New Yorker. Generally, the media is controlled by the Illuminati, but occasionally you will get the truth, because their control isn't total, because then the journalists would be alerted to something, something's wrong. So that Ian Parker article is like 10,000 words, very accurate. It seems to me a very realistic portrayal of what actually happened, and it was made possible by the fact that it's based on a lot of emails that got saved, and so they were able to. He was able to piece together what really happened, and because of that, we can see how this case is being used, basically as a truncheon, to hit us over the head with it. And Dharam Ravi isn't taking any of it. He got offered a conditional sentence where he wouldn't have had to go to jail, just do something like 900 hours community service. And he rejected it because he said he did nothing wrong, and he didn't. He didn't do anything wrong. And if Clemente hadn't have gone out and committed suicide, there wouldn't have been a case here. And there's no proof of why he committed suicide. So to me, this is just an example of how we're being manipulated. Society is being manipulated to essentially make homosexuality the norm. Gus, are you going to take calls? Because I'd like to hear what your listeners have to say.
Oh, absolutely. My co-host, she has a few questions as well. I'll give out the number. It's 760-569-76. And the code is 564-943#. If you dial that line, press *6. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it's *8. I wanted to say, number one, for listeners, if you have not been following this case or if you have heard of it, number one, it was widely reported, and this is not true, that Mr. Ravi uploaded video of Tyler Clemente engaging in homosexual activity, and he put this on the internet. That is false. And this Ian Parker article, he points that out, that did not happen. It was not recorded. It was not uploaded. You can't go online, nor at any point could you go online and view a recording of what happened. But that was widely reported in the media, and it was not true. I did want to ask, because I suspect that many people will attack you, and say that you're homophobic. I just wondered if you have codified your response to that accusation. How do you respond when people say, Mr. Makow, you are homophobic?
Well, anyone who, first of all, homophobic, if you look at the word, it actually means afraid. You have a fear of homosexuality, a fear of homosexuals. To me, you're brain dead if you don't have a fear of homosexuality and what it's going to do and what it is doing to society if it's made the norm. And so, I embrace the term. Yes, I am afraid of homosexuality becoming the norm in our society. Families will be destroyed, and people get their identity and meaning in life, that is heterosexuals, 98% of the population, from their gender identity, which is being eroded, and then from marriage, and then from the identity of being a husband or a wife, a father or a mother, and then a brother or a sister, and so on. It's just designed to deprogram us so that they can reprogram us as their servants. So yes, I embrace that term, homophobic, and I think anyone who isn't a homophobic is asleep.
Very interesting. I will check the phone lines as well. Justice, if you have some questions for Mr. Makow, your line should be open. Please proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Okay. Greetings, Mr. Makow. Is that it? Or Makow?
Makow. Yeah,
okay. Hi.
Makow.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your name?
My name is Justice.
Okay. Go ahead.
Why is anti-sexual behavior on this planet, and what do you think caused anti-sexual behavior to occur?
Sorry, what do you mean by anti-sexual behavior? Just there?
Yes. Male, female, but in a sexual way. I just like to.
You mean homosexual? You mean homosexual?
Yeah. It means the same thing. Yeah.
Oh,
But I like to use that term because, hang on, but I like to use that term because it's more clear, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and the question is, why does homosexual behavior occur?
And why is it on this planet?
Yeah, well, until 1973, all doctors were of the view that it's a developmental disorder. That's largely developmental disorder that's caused by young men identifying with their mothers and young women having issues with their fathers, and if we just look at men, for example, they're essentially trying to make up for the loss of their father. One of my best friends, who's a homosexual, or one of my best friends who is a homosexual, said he became a homosexual because he had too much mommy and not enough daddy, and they're essentially trying to regain their masculinity by having promiscuous sex with men, as many as they possibly can. It's a disorder. It's like a flu. You know, it can be cured if it's recognized for what it really is. And so it's usually caused by this power imbalance and gender confusion. But it's also caused, as Gus mentioned, in the case of that CNN announcer, in about a third of the cases, by homosexuals actually assaulting young heterosexual males at a formative stage, and which just messes up their sexuality. So it's got to be recognized for what it is. It's a disorder, and all the doctors were in agreement. And then in '73, the Rockefeller Foundation, which finances the American Psychological Association, they basically sent in a bunch of activists, and they loaded the meeting, and they got homosexuality changed into no longer being a disorder. Of course, the Rockefellers are the central bankers, the Illuminati. So it's all part of this deliberate plan to undermine society by making homosexuality a norm. And you've got to realize how serious this is when government and education and media all get together and try to impose what is essentially a sickness, which even homosexuals agree is a sickness, on non-homosexuals. That's how serious the situation is. And for your readers, for your listeners, I recommend a book called Homosexuality, A Freedom Too Far by Charles C.O.W.S, M.D. Charles C.O.W.S, M.D. He treated homosexuals, hundreds of them, for 40 years. And his patients, and he had no doubt that this was a perversion, a disorder, and they wanted out of it. And many homosexuals I've met recognize that it is a horrible way to be because it deprives them of the opportunity to get married and have children and have family and have supports when they're old. And so to say that this disorder is actually healthy and normal is a vicious, hateful assault on society as a whole. But because it's coming from the sources of power in society, society is indifferent to what's being done. I hope that answered your question.
Your website is called SavesTheMales.ca. It looks like you try to mostly focus on the the anti-sexuality in males, but not females. Why do you focus more on males being anti-sexual than females being anti-sexual?
Well, actually, I do have a couple of articles about lesbianism. If you search my site, there's a search engine in the top left corner. There's a article called "Here Come the Lesbian Rangers," which is an article about female homosexuality. And again, it's usually based on. It usually takes place because a father was abusive when the girl was young, and paradoxically, the young woman rebels against her father by becoming more like him, by becoming masculine. I don't know how many lesbians you know, but most of them have issues with their fathers, and the same applies to many male homosexuals too. And that's why feminism, which is breaking up marriages and forcing women to raise the children alone without fathers, is actually just perpetuating homosexuality.
How do you think anti-sexual behavior can be eliminated?
Well, I'm not an expert on this, but there are organizations. There's one called P.F.O.X. If you Google P.F.O.X, Friends of Ex-Gays and Gays, Friends and Family of Ex-Gays and Gays. They're devoted to helping homosexuals leave homosexuality, and there are a number of therapies, but I'm not really expert on how it can be done. But it obviously involves some kind of therapy and some kind of recognition on the part of the individual about how this came to be. People will call me a homophobe, but I don't hate gays at all. I just regard them as, in fact, I like them. I just believe that they've suffered a certain disorder, because of family circumstances, and that if they wish, that it can be corrected. But my concern, if you just listen to me, is not with correcting gays, although they're free to do what they want. My concern is with this society-wide drive to turn us all into homosexuals by attacking our gender identity and creating gender confusion so that we cannot establish permanent bonds with members of the opposite sex and then provide a solid foundation for family. That's my real concern. I'm not, my concern is the hate-filled attack on society by people who should know better. And that's all documented in my book, Cruel Hoax, Feminism and the New World Order. There's a lot about homosexuality in there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes. In your opinion, what behaviors does the average non-white person do that could be helping to maintain white supremacy besides anti-sexual behavior?
I am, this isn't really my issue, it's really Gus's issue. I really am not expert on racism, one way or another. I don't, I just isn't my focus. I know it's very important, and I'm just glad other people are carrying that, that issue forward. But I just don't have any, expertise. I think the only thing I would say is that racial division is being exacerbated. It's deliberate. It's being done by, again, the Illuminati bankers who own the media and brainwash us through their control of the media and through their control of government. I think blacks and whites and minorities, we all have to sort of unite and realize that we're all in the same mind control laboratory. We're all being controlled. We're all being divided and set against each other in order to ultimately subjugate us and make us better servants for this, the 1% that they're talking about, who pretty well own and control everything. So I think it's it's a huge diversion. We should all focus on our real enemy, our common enemy, and that is the central bankers, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the people who own the Federal Reserve, who own and control most corporations and mass media. That's the real divide, and I think I would like to see whites and blacks and Hispanics and everybody join and recognize that we're being divided deliberately so that we don't recognize who our real enemy is.
Thank you for answering my questions. Back to you, Gus.
Okay, thanks, Joseph.
Mm-hmm. I'll give out the number again. If folks have questions they would like to ask, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions for Mr. Henry Makow. I was reading your website, and you have a lot of articles on this topic, and you said that gay and lesbian groups are calling for more attacks on heterosexuals, such as removing gender distinctions in campus bathrooms and housing. I just wanted to know, is that true, and do you have evidence to support that, Mr. Makow?
Yeah, first of all, that's in the article by Ian Parker, but also I have stayed in residence, because when I visit Toronto, I stayed at the residence at University College, and it's a mixed bathroom, and that to me, luckily the stalls are, there's no, you can't go under or over, the stalls are like bricked up. Nonetheless, the whole bathroom is mixed, and it's like I stay there during the summer, and believe me, it's happening. It's happening on campuses across North America. To me, there's no way they should even have co-ed dorms on the same floor, or co-ed rooms on the same floor. I don't believe, but they do, and they do have co-ed bathrooms. I've used them. To my trepidation, you basically have to sneak in, sneak out, hope the coast is clear. It's again another attack on heterosexuals. It's an attempt to erase gender. That's what it's all about. What is gender? Masculinity and femininity. There's a huge attack on both of those things. They don't want men to be masculine, and they don't want women to be feminine. So all the media is setting forth models for women, and the models are all essentially that these women are very masculine, they're very aggressive, they're very dynamic, all the things you'd expect a man to be. And similarly, that men are playing complementary roles like women used to play. Traditionally, women made a woman. What is feminine? Femininity is for a woman to be attractive to a man and to be a good wife, have the qualities necessary to be a good wife and mother. That's what femininity is. And masculinity is, in my view, is to provide principled and just leadership to the family, to protect and to provide, so that a woman can concentrate on raising her children. And you just rarely see, in the last 25, it's been about 25 years since you have an example where the men are actually being encouraged to take leadership roles and responsibility for their families. It's now a case where women are being encouraged to basically regard not marriage but divorce as the beginning of their lives. When I was teaching, all the young people came out, all the young women came out of high school into university, and they wanted to get a career so they could support their families after they divorced their husbands. That was their mentality. So the key moment, the key turning point in their life was not marriage but divorce. So heterosexuals have got to wake up and realize that they are the victims and the targets of this toxic attack designed to re-engineer us so that we are essentially unable to marry, unable to form families, and we're isolated and alone without identities, so that they can give us identities as essentially consumers and producers in their corporations, and they can give us identities in terms of the political movements they want us to subscribe to.
I see some of the folks have dialed in with questions. If you're on the talk show line, it's *8 if you have a question for Mr. Makow. Before I hit the phone line, just 3 quick points. Number one, I think we've heard before mentioned on this program, contempt for gender. Sounds like Mr. Makow is observing the same thing. Second point, I recall the White Privilege Conference, which I think is going on right now, number 13. When I was at White Privilege Conference number 11, they had gender-neutral bathrooms. Gender-neutral bathrooms. Widely promoted at White Privilege number 11. The final thing, Mr. Makow, he encouraged listeners to check out, just to do a Google search on straight males. I did so, and I got 49.3 million results, and the whole first page seems to be homosexual links about getting so-called straight males and being engaged in some sort of quote-unquote homosexual activity with them. I got, again, 39.3 million results when I did the search. I think this is Pam, co-author of Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. Your line should be open. Did you have a question for Mr. Makow?
Yes, I do. Good evening, Mr. Makow. Good evening, Gus and Justice. The question I have is, I wanted to say I do agree with a conspiracy to eliminate gender or to attack gender for the purposes of controlling us. The question I have for you is, do you think it's responsible or constructive to advise the black and non-white victims worldwide of white supremacy to focus on homosexuality rather than white supremacy? There's plenty of evidence that states that before this homosexual push, that whites were practicing racism and whites were practicing white supremacy regardless of this homosexual push. So would you think it would be wise for non-white people, for black people, to not focus on racism at the same time as they focus on the homosexual issue?
No, I wouldn't. I would. First of all, I'm white. As a matter of fact, I'm Jewish, but I don't identify with the Jewish religion at all, and I'm very critical of the behavior of the Jewish people, of organized Jewry anyway, and but I wouldn't tell minorities not to focus on racism. It's something they must experience, and it's relevant. I just want to say from my perspective that what was done to the black family is being done to the white family. It's almost like the black family was a dry run. So where you basically have the breakup of the black family, where you have black males being unable to provide, where you have the black female being the provider and the nucleus of the family, where you have the black female unable to find responsible black males to mate with. It's almost like that was a dry run, because that's being done now to the white family. And so I just think blacks and whites, we have more in common than you may think. And I really think we should focus on our common enemy, which is the central banker and all of their instruments of social engineering and mind control. And I'm referring to the mass media, I'm referring to the education system. That's our common enemy, and their ultimate agenda is to create a police state. And so we can't, we've got to look at things in the big picture. Terrorism doesn't exist. It's just it's being created in order to provide a pretext to take away our civil liberties. That's a serious problem, and I think we need to focus more on what we've got in common, because ordinary whites and ordinary blacks are not behind the agenda. And I don't believe in white supremacy, but I do believe that whites should do the same thing blacks do, and that is to organize in terms of their community interests. And then they should reach out a hand to blacks, and because we have a hell of a lot in common.
Would that not require, though, that white people first stop practicing white supremacy? I would say, as a black person, and I've been black all my life, that my biggest problem, and the biggest problem I see of black people, is not the homosexual push, is racism, white supremacy. It is racist white people that make black people's lives difficult. The homosexual agenda is just one more way of dismantling the family and dismantling the communities in opposition. But for most black people, I would say we can't, in my opinion, we can't begin to talk about what we have in common until white people collectively and Jews collectively stop practicing racism against black and non-white people. I don't see how we can be expected to put that on the back burner when we're suffering from it. So I would say, me personally,
I'm not asking you to put it on the back burner. Though, do you agree that there's been a huge attack on the black family and the African American community has suffered because of this attack on the family?
Absolutely, but I subscribe the culprit to racism, white supremacy, starting from slavery, not to the homosexual push, but to racism, white supremacy. That is what has attacked the black family from the beginning. And that involved not just white elite, that also involved the average ordinary white person. It's necessary for them to be involved in practicing white supremacy because they're the foot soldiers. So it's not just the elite that create the system of white supremacy. It is the vast majority of white people who, either by the crime of omission or commission, continue to keep that system going and who resist any change in that system.
Well, I want to ask you a question. When I've touched on this issue, I used to hear from a reader, a black reader, who said that the black people in America would have been better off if segregation had continued, and if the black community was able to set up their own institutions, their own schools, their own businesses, their own corporations, and the black people would have been better off with segregation than without it. Do you think he's right? This was a black reader telling me this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually I do agree, because I think integration has been a huge failure, because you can't integrate into a society where the people despise you. That's subjugation, not integration. And so, yes, I do think right after slavery, when black people started to go away from the plantations and they started these all-black towns For example, Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street had its own bank, had its own library, had a bus line, had 2 theaters, had multiple churches and businesses that rivaled anything around them, including white businesses. And white people used to shop at these black stores. So had black people been left alone after slavery to continue to develop, because we were actually the skilled labor on the plantation, if we had been left alone to develop our own economic base, Black Wall Street would have just been the beginning. We would have had Black Wall Streets all over the country.
Pam, I wanted to
sorry. I didn't mean to get up on a roll.
No problem. Well, one problem I will note, the flow of information. That's something we should keep an eye on anytime there's a conversation with a white person and non-white people, whom is asking questions, and that has changed. Just wanted to note that. Person that called in from Ohio, did you have a question for Mr. Makow? Person in Ohio, did you have a question?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hello? All right, thanks for taking my call, Gus. Yeah, the question is, your guest said that he was Jewish, but he did not practice the religion. Could he define what is a Jewish, how is he Jewish if he doesn't practice the religion?
Well, frankly, I don't believe Judaism is a religion. So I can't practice something I don't even believe exists. When I say I'm Jewish, I simply mean my mother and father were Jewish. And so I can't very well deny that I'm Jewish. I have certain Jewish qualities. One of them is, Jews like to talk, they like to read, and they like to write. And, so in that respect, I recognize, hey, I'm in that respect, I'm Jewish. But most of the things I write about, most Jews would disagree with me because I'm very critical of the role of organized Jewry in society. I'm one of the few people that is very critical of organized Jewry, and you can find my critique on my website or in my book, Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't, because I still don't understand. How are you Jewish because of your mother and father? Is there some type of bloodline? And as Jewish, does that mean like you're a Semite, or is it like are you mixed with something else, or how do you become Jewish because your mother and father was Jewish? Are you talking about some type of bloodline?
Yeah, like what are your parents? Were they? Who were your parents? Were they? Were they black? Were they white? Were they English or German or?
They were non-white. But my question is, Jewish and is a religion. You're trying to classify being Jewish as a race, and if you're a race, are you non-white or are you white?
I don't know. I think we're white, but other people would say we're something else. The other people classify Jews
what do you put on your driver's license? Are you a white male? Are you a white male on your driver's license?
I think so, yeah.
So you're a Jewish white male. That means there's some type of connection since you don't follow religion. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still confused.
Well, look at blacks. I mean, some blacks might be Baptists and some might be other religions, but they'd say they were blacks. So I think Judaism, I mean not Judaism, but Jewish people, I think there's a large racial component. At least I think that's true.
Thanks for taking my call, Gus.
Okay.
For sure. The website, again, is Henry Makow, Makow, henrymakow.com, or SavesTheMales.ca. You can check out more of his information. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Thursday evening with us, Mr. Makow. I do want to point out one thing, though. You did say earlier in the broadcast that you are a white man. You said that earlier, and then just a few minutes ago, you gave a response as though you were ambiguous about your racial status. That is extremely suspicious behavior to me. However, you did say that you were white earlier, so it's not anything I'm surprised about. I'm not confused about that. Just for the listeners, he did say he was white earlier in the broadcast, but I do appreciate the information. SavesTheMales.ca, HenryMakow.com. Thank you, Mr. Makow. We will be in touch with you soon, sir.
Thanks, Gus.
For sure.
Bye for now.
Yes, sir. Context of white supremacy. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Freedom Home Academy. Context of white supremacy. Man, oh man. Stay tuned.
I worry about silly things like keeping my saddle shoes straight. What am I going to wear today? The things that a 15-year-old girl does wear. But also, which part of the hall to walk in that's the safest? Who's going to hit me with what? Is it going to be hot soup today? Is it going to be so greasy that it ruins the dress my grandmother made for me? I mean, how's this day going to go?
Hannah School is apologizing to a parent after a 5th grade lesson on slavery, a lesson that forced an African-American student to the mock auction block so white students could bid on him. 10 Investigates' Paul Aker joins us with the school's response. Paul?
That's right, Andrea. The school says only one parent was upset by this lesson, but that parent was really upset. And the student says he was humiliated by it.
For a couple of weeks, there had been a number of white kids following us, a series of hassles, continuous calling us niggas, nigger, one right after the other.
An Alta High School student says a classmate wearing a KKK hood is no joke. Now his blog has sparked an investigation into racism at the school. The student behind the blog wrote that he was both numb and appalled at what happened at a spirit rally last Thursday. Lars Cosby decided to take a stand against one student's brand of humor that included a Nazi salute and KKK attire. Richard Pyatt tracked Cosby down and has the school's response.
By the time school had ended, I had sort of settled into myself. And I could have gone on for the next 5 years. It didn't matter anymore. I was past feeling. I was into just that kind of numb pain where you say, hey, I can make it, do whatever you'd like, and it just doesn't matter anymore. But I came home, and by myself, I walked to the backyard, and I burned my books. I burned everything that I could burn. And I just stood there crying, looking into the fire, and wondering whether I would go back, but not wanting to go back.
Context of white supremacy. We've done several broadcasts on the school system, education under white supremacy. That's what you can look forward to. Long as you're going to send your child to the schools of racist man, racist woman, racist child, that is what you can look forward to. Always a pleasure. Do what we can here at the Cows to encourage black parents to think of alternatives for educating their child, homeschooling options, independent school options. Definitely want to remind people. I know I had one of our listeners, investors, and he was talking about homeschooling, and he had some concerns. Not sure if he would be up to the challenge. And hey, you can always send your child back to white people. They will always have a seat waiting, a pink slime lunch waiting for them. They got you. If you don't feel up to the task of educating your child, they got you. No problem. However, I think we can do better. And hopefully our guests will inspire people to do better and, again, to think about other alternatives to sending your child to white people's schools. I got his information a while ago. I was really looking forward to having him on the program to share more about Freedom Home Academy. Great work that they are doing, educating young black children. Joining us live from Chicago, Pam's neck of the woods, joining us live from Chicago. Real pleasure to have him on the broadcast. The director of Freedom Home Academy, Mr. Marcus Kline. Mr. Kline, are you with us, sir?
I'm here, brother. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Pleasure is ours, sir. Pleasure is ours. Thank you for sharing a bit of your time with us this evening. For folks, this might be their first time hearing about Freedom Home Academy and the work that you do. Would you mind giving us some background information about yourself? Anything you think would be helpful for people to know before we proceed?
Absolutely. I know. I was just listening to the guy you had on earlier. That was an interesting dialogue. But myself, I started a magazine called Frontline Magazine in 1993, and that was the first step of our development process with institutional building. So we moved to our next phase, which was Freedom Home Academy, which we started in 2006 in the basement of our home. It was defined as a home school because it was in a home at the time, but now we're a private institution. Of course, we kept the name Freedom Home Academy, but logistically, we are a private institution. We've branched out to a second school, which is called the School of Literacy, and those interested can get online and type in schooloflit.com and see some YouTube and some footage that we've taken of children, second, almost 2 and 3 year olds reading on 4th and 5th grade levels. And we kind of give a brief synopsis on how we create those reading curriculums, which is very interesting too, because some of the older instructors from the public school system still say it's impossible to do, but we're doing it, and that just goes to show us that we're still locked inside of a certain paradigm, and we're fearful to come out of it, even when we witness there's healthy alternatives to it, due to psychosis and other things we have going on mentally. Sometimes we refuse to connect with something that's kind of foreign to us, and this concept is very foreign. It's created around repetition and duration. We extend the three main courses, which is math, reading and English, grammar. That's done 3 times a day for children 3 all the way up to the 8th grade. So the school's curriculum is very rigid, but at the same time it's flexible because we're always adding to the curriculum, when we see a need. And we're on our 7th year now, and like I said earlier, we're on our 2nd school. We have over 90 children, 70 in one and 20 in the smaller school, which is actually a feeder. The smaller school is a feeder school. We have 1 and 2 year olds learning the first 250 first grade words. And once they master those words, spelling and reading, they move on to Freedom Home Academy, the larger school. So right now it's going pretty well. The most pushback we're having is from our people and the parents. So that's the most difficult challenge is the parents, though. But other than that, the children are doing excellent. And I would kind of suggest that some of the listeners get on and check us out online, and then they can pretty much see what the process of teaching children is. Anatomy, French, Spanish, Latin, Swahili. Kiswahili is almost the cornerstone of our foreign language department, as we teach African-centered. We teach from African-centered with all our courses. So it's not just a certain African history. All the courses are intertwined with African history, African culture. So we don't just talk the talk. We walk the walk at the same time. So.
Wow. Again, Mr. Marcus Kline, director of Freedom Home Academy, and you can visit their website, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. I'm sorry?
No, I was just agreeing with you. That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir. freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. I will put it in the chat room. You can check it out, see their curriculum, see some of these outstanding young pupils that they are nourishing, going to be our future scholars. You heard some of the foolishness that went on. I shouldn't say foolishness. I'm sorry. I'm going to be better. You heard some of the suspected racist behavior that was occurring before you joined us, Mr. Kline, just so we don't have the same confusion. You are a black male. Is that correct?
No question. No question.
You're not going to switch on us later and be Jewish or something else, are you?
But you know what? I don't want to get too far, off the path. But the original Jews, the original Black Hebrews, the fallacious Jews from the continent, we have those, But when the European, he tries to make Judaism a bloodline, I mean that's going into a little something I don't want to get into, but that I see he was very ambiguous. I didn't hear him from the beginning, but I know you said he originally said he was a white male, and then he went on ahead and said he was Jewish. But being Jewish is a religion, so you can read the Kabbalah and you can read the Torah and become a Jew, but it's not a bloodline. But I mean, it's something that will argue that. So I'm not here to to get deep into that, but I will refer them to a nice book written by Arthur Kutzler. It was called The 13th Tribe. Excellent piece for the listeners to go on and grab that. He talks about the Ashkenaz Jews who had no connection to Israel or Jerusalem, who switched to become Judaism, switched to become Jews almost overnight. So it's a good piece. Actually, it was a movie also called The 13th Warrior, and Antonio Banderas starred in that movie. But yeah. I mean, if listeners want to get more information on that, that's an excellent book to start with. 13th Tribe.
13th Tribe. I'm putting it in the chat room. The 13th Tribe.
It's a good piece, yeah. But I wanted to say this also to the readers who are interested in going into a homeschool format with their children. I know sometimes it can be challenging. I know for those who work 8 hours, we do have a curriculum that's ready to mail out if they were interested in getting our curriculum. We have 3 courses that's ready to go. It's very affordable. It's very comprehensive. If the listeners are familiar with Booker T. Coleman, he helped create our African Center program with our reading. In addition to our math, we're teaching 2- and 3-year-olds the alphabet using the African Metaneta hieroglyphs. So coloring, acknowledging the words, reading the words, reciting the alphabet. All that's from the Metaneta, and he's created this curriculum. It's very comprehensive, and the children are gravitating to it very quickly. We just started this particular piece like 3 weeks ago because Booker T has an excellent. Actually, he has a history of creating curriculums in the New York City public school system. So that's pretty much part of his background, creating curriculums. And in addition to that, sometimes we're having trouble convincing some of our people that having an African-centered curriculum is very important for the development of African-centered children. Some of us still don't believe that's important. But for the listeners, there's an attack on African-centered curriculum. I mean, there's been a harsh attack on African-centered curriculum for the last almost 20 years. I know you're familiar with the bell curve, and I know you are. Some of the listeners familiar with the bell curve and the diatribe on how African people are inferior socially, academically, intellectually. A book also came out called Culture Wars, written by a cat named James Hunter. Race and Sex on Campus, William Bennett, of course you're familiar with him. Devaluing America, written by a cat by the name of Robert Bork. I know some of the research are familiar with him. So in the last 20 years, there's been an attack on this type of learning, saying that African people has not contributed anything significant in history, in math, in philosophy, and sciences. So those individuals, some of them, specifically University of Chicago, they're bringing these individuals on to their campuses. So once they get there, they're able to teach and instruct future instructors. So when those instructors leave being learned from them, they go on to high schools and teach, and then they espouse these same theories on to our high school students, and then sometimes our elementary students. So then they become, well, we all know the outcome once a child figures out that he has no relevance on the planet, or not even on this block, you know, what type of African child he becomes. So it's very important that we realize that it's an everyday attack on this type of learning. But then sometimes we get caught up and we say that the cultural schools, are academically insufficient, and some of them are. That's one of the reasons why we want to create our own institution that's centered on being African and at the same time being very rigid in academic curriculum. And that's one of the reasons why we created the school, Freedom Home Academy, in 2006.
Outstanding. Again, our guest, Mr. Marcus Kline, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. Dr. Booker T. Coleman. He's been a guest on the program before. You can visit the archives. He had a lot of great info to share when he was on the program. I didn't wanted to ask this broadcast, the COWS, context of white supremacy. I have concluded the reason that there has been such a strong attack on African-centered schools, why we have such a terrible time being educated, is the system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, same definition for both terms. The definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that's an accurate definition?
I think that's very accurate. As a matter of fact, we're bringing in Dr. Francis Welshing next week, Saturday, to do a lecture for the parents. So I think not only is that accurate, that is a scientific definition. And I say scientific because we can see the results of that. So when you tell someone that and they say, oh, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist, all white people aren't the same, we can identify what you just said and place it in pragmatic terms. We can break that down to the smallest increment, and we can see evidences of that definition come alive every day. But sometimes we have to, us being griots, we have to figure out how do we break this definition down and make it palatable for the brothers and sisters who have no idea on what this is. How do we put those glasses on so they can see? Because some of us still don't believe. We're living in a racist, white supremacist society. Some of us just don't believe it. So we have to be better at not only diagnosing the issue, but being able to break it down and make it palatable for brothers and sisters that's not listening to your radio show, not reading books, just going throughout their day-to-days. That's why I think it's a disconnect. So.
Wow, we are on time. Dr. Welsing was just a guest on the program 2 days, or Sunday, so I guess it's more than 2 days, but okay. She was just on the program right on time. I want to get back to what you said, because I think it relates to what you just said, that disconnect, where many of us, we are confused or in denial about the existence of the system of white supremacy. And I think it relates to, you said a lot of the problems that you've been having has not been with white people, it's been with other black people. And I wanted to get more detail about that. I just had our quick sound clip, I think obligatory.
If anyone is ignorant about racism, it's black people.
The resistance you have been encountering, Mr. Kline?
Well, it's coming from pretty much the parents who are not clear on why our black men are dysfunctional. So, when it comes down to, being disciplined at the school, taking a strong stance on how the young boys speak, how they motivate with each other, the rules that we have in school. Some of our parents consider those rules very stringent. And some have left the school due to those type of stringent rules and disciplinary fashion in which we administer those rules. So when they can't make the connection between the brothers and sisters on the block who've dropped out of school and having rules put in place to make black boys men, they don't understand that connection. So they leave, and then even for the ones that don't leave and stay, there's a lot of pushback. So and of course it has a lot to do with our psychosis that we have with our history of slavery, the female relationship with men, me being a director, me being a young black man, and their view toward me, a respect level toward men in general. Now you're handing your son, your daughter off to a black male as opposed to a white woman or a black woman or a white male. This is something foreign to them. Having me there with another 10 men, now it's just totally different. So being able to almost hold their hand through this entire process is very taxing. And I think at the end of the day, we need training. The parents need to be trained, or I shouldn't say trained, but taught how to parent. What I'm saying? And not only just how to be a mainstream parent or status quo parent, but how to be a parent who has an African mindset. And I place emphasis on that because the African part, because that mindset, often is the determining factor between a young black male growing up, a warrior, and a young black male growing up a homosexual. Sometimes it's just as absolute as that. If I can go that route, but as it relates to the pushback, those are the problems we're having. Children coming from a non-disciplined environment to us, and we're getting definitely pushed back. And a lot of parents, don't come because we're African-centered school. They come because they've seen, children reading, and whether on the bus or at a function, they've seen one of our children, doing something academic. Some of them don't even know my history with, being African-centered. They don't even know that. They just come for the academic piece. But once they get in, now it's kind of like, wow, everywhere I look, it's Marcus Garvey, it's a picture of Malcolm X, so that, that whole thing, not us. See, one of the problems with the school, we don't have, and we should, but we don't have classes for the parents. And I was starting, I didn't even think of it. I just thought about the children. But if I was to do it all over again, I think it would be more of an interview process, or maybe a 4-week course parents will have to go through before even entering children, because children aren't an issue. It's the parents. So I hope I kind of answered your question, pretty accurately.
Wow. Fascinating. Before I even proceed, I kind of wanted to rewind when you were talking about the issue, I guess, when you're going through the interview process and these parents are bringing their children in, and you said that they have a problem because they are turning their child over not to what they are accustomed to, a white man or a white woman. It's a black male, and you can sense some resistance, some angst about this black guy is supposed to be in charge of my child, and maybe even a less respect, less regard for you because you're a black male. Can you kind of go into more detail about that?
Absolutely, and I get that. I get that mainly, surprisingly, from more brothers, male parents, than I do from sisters. I think the men, have a problem with me being very influential to their children. Sometimes have more influence. I have more influence than the dad and the mom. So I know that's an issue. That's brought immediately, like how long they're in the classroom, how long they're in school. It's a 9-hour day. Some of the children who come in now are vegetarian, for example. After 2 or 3 months, they're putting pressure on the parents to start getting less meat, bringing less meat home, and things of that nature. So I think just taking a cursory glance at it, it may seem minimalistic, but once it starts piling on, okay, Dad, we shouldn't listen to this type of music. Why don't you read these type of books? Because Baba Marcus, he talks about these. He talks about Malcolm X. What do you know about Malcolm X? So now that's putting a lot of pressure on the parents to become more centered in their culture. And when it's a lack of culture at home, now it becomes a problem. So parents become very scrutinizing with some of the things at the school all of a sudden, because that pressure is mounting. Reading, culture, what type of magazines, what type of books is being brought to the house, because Baba Marcus said that you should be doing X, Y, Z, and you're not. So that whole thing. But I will say this: we do have a core of at least 75 to 80% of our parents are very, very proactive. But it's the 20% that I have to meet with on a daily basis after school. That's why I'm late now. I was meeting with a parent an hour after school about what some would consider nitpicking, and but I know it's the slave mentality, brother. I mean, chop right down to the core. It's how men, us, we view each other. And how sisters view men deep down. I mean, we can go all day with Jill Scott verses, but at the end of the day, sisters, I think, have a problem with men disciplining their men. And when I say their men, I mean their children. Francis Wilson talks about it too. It's the separation between the parent and that young boy. That boy, it's hard for that boy to become a man unless he goes through some type of passage. And I think the school aids in that process. But at the same time, we have issues with parents giving up some, or I don't even feel like giving up, but sometimes relinquishing a little of that power that they have to me being a young black male.
Fascinating. Wow. I guess, and it seems very much related, because you're talking about that African mind state, trying to instill that in the children, and parents not having it. What do you mean when you say African mindset?
Well, for an example, today we were talking about Kemet. We were going more into Imhotep, and I mentioned the movie Mummy, right? So the children raised their hand, yeah, I saw Mummy, right? So I said, well, do you think it was a bad thing that they wanted to kill the mummy? So one of the little brothers, he was like, yeah, he was dark skinned. So I said, well, man, actually the mummy wasn't dark skinned, but even if he was, why would it be all right to kill him because he's dark skinned, right? So some of the children were kind of ragging on him, but he's a new guy. So I was like, man, I'm gonna rap to you, after class. I'm explaining to you, why the color thing isn't as important as you might think it is. But it's more about, who you are, being an African. So Africans come in all different shades. So, I'm rapping to him a little bit, but I was going to touch on it later. But before I could, his dad came. So all three of us, we were in a meeting. And so his dad wanted to know why was it important that I talked to him about dark skin and light skin. He didn't feel it was important. So I said, well, your son said basically being dark skinned makes it okay for him to be brutalized. I mean, how you feel about that? He was like, well, I know a lot of dark-skinned people that need to have their ass kicked. So from there, I knew what I was dealing with, right? So historically, in the past, what I would do is I would just let that go, and I would find out a way to get to the child as opposed to the parent. But in this case, I decided to give the parent a history lesson as quickly as possible. But I have to do it stepping on eggshells, more or less, because, me trying to say anything to him from a teaching standpoint would be looked at as, an embarrassment to him. So I didn't want to do that. So I had to do it in a particular way. So to answer your question, teaching from an African center means just that. You are an African. So our worldview has to identify with where we're from and who we are. So if we look from the inside out as opposed to the outside in, we would have more of a connection as opposed to saying like, well, those people were from Africa. I'm from Chicago, in that nature. But if we teach that everything that we see had an origin. Television had an origin. Who invented it? Who created it? So if we start teaching that we had significance here on the planet. We did. We've done X, Y, Z. And if I show him we've done X, Y, Z, the people that created it look like his father, look like me, look like him. He would start saying like, wow, okay. So we weren't just walking around in Africa naked and the Tarzan movie and things of that nature. I can start showing him very specifically the things that we've done are significant. So we teaching from history from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. And I think that's important because the children start seeing Africa in them as opposed to being, having history taught from slavery up. We teach history, 13th dynasty, 20th dynasty, we all over the continent. We haven't even got to slavery yet. So that's that's how we administer the history program. I don't say the program is perfect, not by any means, but it's effective in that it's visual. We can see, like, wow, it was African brothers. It was brothers that looked like me on the continent of Africa then. Wow, so they can identify with that.
I pressed or I typed, oh my God, in the chat room about 20 times with that anecdote. We had several of the listeners, they asked if you could speak up. I'm not sure if you're on speakerphone or what have you, but if you could project your voice, speak up, give us a little more volume, that would be super helpful.
Okay, okay, go ahead. I think that's a little better.
Okay, I'll see if that's better for them. I'm just curious with the anecdote, and I hope this is not getting too much in anyone's business. What exactly did you say to the parent in terms of the quick history lesson to just kind of convey the importance about, hey, being dark complexion does not mean you should be subjected to mistreatment?
Oh, absolutely. Not to mention the fact that the brother I was talking to was. so out the gate, I informed the brother, like, well, if that theory is true, every time that you do something that someone considered bad, you should have been brutalized. And then he goes on to say, he was. So, basically, the historical context that I spoke from, I wasn't trying to, obviously belittle the brother, but I wanted him to see exactly what we were teaching his son. So I just told him that being dark or being light has it it's not a determinant into how you treat anyone, you know. So the words that I chose had to be very selective because, you know, he's waiting for me to say that I hate white people. You know what I'm saying? So going in, I knew I should say it was important that I select my words very carefully. But that's basically what I went over. Historically, you know, we've been brutalized and we've been separated from each other. The dark and the light. Willie Lynch told us that the light-skinned blacks need to be separated from the dark-skinned Africans. Why? Because the light-skinned blacks were looked at as better than the dark-skinned. Now, and who gave us these theories? These theories were given to us by racist, white supremacist Europeans. So with that, you know, I was able to get them, you know, but at the same time, it's going to take, you know, more than 15, 20 minutes, you know, to rectify 30, 40 years of, of, you know, mental abuse. But, I mean, you know, more or less, the brother was receptive. But those conversations I have to have a lot because when they look at me and they always, 95% of the time, they go, they line me up on what they heard either on the street or they saw a YouTube clip or they looked at the site. They're like, okay, cool, I'm going there. I know what type of guy he's going to be. He's a pro-black militant. But that's not what I give off because I know they're expecting that. And they're waiting for something in the curriculum that they could punch holes in. And I don't give them that. You know, we're going right in with academics. We're academic heavy. But if you're looking for something African-centered, we have that too. But I don't promote the school as an African-centered school. You know, I let the curriculum speak for itself. And then too, you know, African-centered curriculums, I know in Chicago specifically, has gotten a bad name, you know, due to definitely not gonna mention the school's name, but due to some of the schools here in Chicago have gotten a bad name because of, you know, their academic, for lack of better words, bad academic programs, let's just put it that way. And I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying that's what African-centered schools have the bad rap that they have gotten because of some particular schools in Chicago with the academic programs aren't up to par. So that's kind of got me steering away from that label per se, but the program is, of course, African-centered.
Again, our guest, Mr. Marcus Kline, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com.
Yes, sir.
freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. Please visit the website. Excellent information. Some of the rules you talked about, some of the parents being resistant. One of them I saw was clothing with European images are not allowed at school, and I thought that was worthy of a standing ovation.
Big problem. You know what? We talked about that. We talked about that today specifically. One of the parents wanted to know. I mean, he was an honest brother, so he's the type of brother that comes in. He asks for books. Sometimes he takes books off the shelf. You know, asks to read it. So he just wanted to know, like, why did you have a problem with my son having a Spider-Man T-shirt, right? So I wasn't belligerent. I'm never belligerent to parents, but we have a very loose atmosphere around the school because, you know, parents come through. Sometimes it's like 15, 20 parents at the school at the end of the day, and we are like, you know, just talking and kicking around. So he came and asked. So I'm like, well, man, do you look like Spider-Man, brother? So I said, well, why don't you bring your son in here? Brought his son off. I say, little brother, does your dad look like Spider-Man? He's like, no. He said, if my dad looked like Spider-Man, I wouldn't have him on my shirt. Now we all laugh, but
what? Wait a minute.
Yeah,
What did he say?
Check it out. check it out. This happened tonight, brother. So he said, if my dad looked like Spider-Man, I wouldn't have him on my shirt. Now, it's like 8 of us in the room. But we laughing, joking around. So I say, big brother, how you feel about that, man? He was like, man, I don't know. I don't know how I should feel. I was like, man, so that should give you a reason. He was like, well, man, is it any T-shirts I can buy with black images? So my son was like, oh, you can get the Panther. You get the Panther, the Black Panther. You got Luke Cage. You got the Falcon, right? So, he's a relatively new guy, but he wants to learn. So, man, whenever I get brothers, especially, young brothers like that, I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever I can not to ostracize the brother. So, I was cool, but we gave him some reference points. Like, man, you can get the Panther. He had his own action figure, and my son was talking to a little brother about Luke Cage and the Falcon. So, we can't bring in European figure, even though it's done, and we have to, sometimes I tell the brother turn his shirt over, zip the jacket up so he don't see it. But it's very important that we wear images on our shirts, pants, gym shoes, book bags that look like us. Like those European images, they have a resounding effect on our identity, or I should say our lack of identity. And if we continue to gravitate to these images, especially when they're young, oh man, it has a very detrimental effect. It's very detrimental to the identity, especially them girls. And what I'm seeing with the girls is that the whole politics of that hair thing. So now that hair has to be long, and we got a couple of sisters, 4 and 5. Mama got perms for them. So I know the hair. I don't have a girl. I got a boy. So my wife is telling me, man, that hair is a hell of a thing when we're dealing with it scientifically. So I don't deal with the hair, but we definitely shut down those Cinderellas. We got some sisters wear Cinderellas. We had to shut that down. And Layla Africa, he did a nice piece. He came to school in February, and he did a nice piece on the whole European images and the fairy tales, where they came from and the effect psychologically they have on our children. So, he gave me some help, because parents be like, oh, wow, Marcus, it's always something with you. So, but, I mean, we some of the things we bend on, and some things we won't bend. And that's one that we will not bend on, because I know what type of effect that has on our children. Those images, Spider-Man, Cinderella, Iron Man, these are half heroes, man. They half heroes, Let's rock a shirt with Marcus on it. He was a real person. Huey, them real people. Malcolm, real people. Let's get some of those T-shirts. So we promote that as opposed to the other thing. That's very degenerative. Yeah.
Wow, I'm wanting to be enrolled. Like, sign me up. I'd love to be a student there. What are some of the other things that you all do not bend on?
We definitely don't bend on the pants. How we wear the pants, of course. Below the waist, that ain't popping. Seeing as though we in the neighborhood anyway. We in Roseland in Chicago, so some of the listeners know where we are, and we've always been in our neighborhood. So being reflective of the neighborhood we have to be very clear on on how we wear our clothes. Definitely our boys. Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. teaches political science 3 times a week at the school. He was just talking about that, how everything is political, how we wear our clothes. So definitely the pants, definitely our dialogue in the school, unrelenting, and we won't bend on it. The code of conduct, we're not bending on that. How the children respond to us is Baba and Mama. No first name basis. We won't bend on that. The food, we're vegetarian, so when children bring their lunch, if they decide to bring their lunch, sugar, milk, dairy, it's a no-go. I'm not bending on that. some of the other things, we flexible with. But those 4 things, absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, that's been the determining factor whether a child stays or whether he moves on to another institution. Some of the parents can't get on board with it. I mean, and that's cool. I'm not in a position to judge a parent, but these are some things that we created when the school first started, and we feel, not just me, but the other members feel that it's very important that we hold fast with those in particular.
Why the diet? Why the no sugar, no dairy, no milk?
Well, I know the sugar definitely has an effect on the performance of children. We ran a couple of studies. I believe it's still on the site, but if it's not, I can give some listeners some reference points who are interested in doing further research on the sugar and the effect it has on the brain and on the bloodstream, making it very difficult for children to be still, be attentive. We was just rapping with Dr. Umar Johnson. We was going over some of that too. How the sugar has an effect on the bloodstream and what it does to the brain. Therein, sometimes when children are diagnosed with the ADD, a lot of it has to do with the sugar intake. Definitely the milk. The milk causes a lot of mucus. Cheese, of course, cheese is dairy, so we don't do that. We're not a strict vegetarian school. We do bread. We do bread once a week, so we can't be called a vegan school. But we don't meat, any dairy products, sugar, and that's about it. I know a sister came in this morning with some quarter waters. I was like, man, I ain't seen a quarter water in like 20 years, but she couldn't drink it though. So. Yeah.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. It sounds like you all are, or at least you have a very patient approach in dealing with students and parents. It sounds like, you didn't, with the Spider-Man thing, you didn't, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And it sounds like that was not your response. Can you touch on the importance of, I guess, being gentle in talking to people who have been extremely victimized?
Absolutely, and not only victimized but demoralized, like daily. They before they came to drop off their children, they've been demoralized. So me being able to see, I'm not a like I said before, the system isn't perfect. So sometimes I do make mistakes as it relates to how I respond, to a parent. I think I've grown patient over time. Now, a lot of times, I've only been doing it 7 years, but I'm learning. It's just a process. Huey P. say, it's a process, not a conclusion, because once we conclude, we become counter-revolutionary. So we can't stop. It's constant. I got to keep learning, talking to parents all the time, and trying to get some historical background on the child. And once I can get a historical background on the child, of course, I can get a historical background on the parent. So, being patient is definitely a tool that needs to be exercised daily. It's almost like, using kid gloves sometimes with the parents, because, like I said before, they come in with a preconceived idea on how I am and how we are, so they're on guard. So the smallest thing I might think is small, but it may be huge to them. And it could affect them negatively. The smallest thing I may say. So I have to, again, choose my words very selectively, and meet them halfway. And I can't be rigid in the way I approach, because that would be seen as being being a dictator, dictatorial. So they don't want to deal with me like that anyway. But patience is very important. I think I wouldn't have half the students in the school if I wasn't. But at the same time, I think we have to be stern at the same time, patient. Because being who I am and how I'm perceived, sometimes I have to overcompensate. And what I mean by that is, sometimes a parent may come in, and he may have a problem with how his son was graded and things of that nature. And sometimes I have to give him or her extra time, going over things maybe 3 or 4 times, searching for words longer because I have to use the right words. So a lot is involved, when dealing with our people. I know when C.O.W.S was created, I looked at that as like a motto. I was like, man, as soon as I get enough money, I'm gonna start my school just like they did, and now I understand why they moved to a charter school, because dealing with the parents, with the finance piece, in addition to just the social piece of creating a school and dealing with our people on that level. But I ain't mentioned the money part. Now it's giving this young black male my money and giving him my son. So that's another dynamic. That's definitely another dynamic. And I know if people are listening that know me, they know how difficult it is for me to actually accept money for this, because that's a whole different piece too. But what you said is definitely correct. Like, patience it's almost a cornerstone, of the school, because that's what keeps it running. Me, having time enough to go over things more than 5 times with parents, and then seeing the development with the parent and the child, so yeah.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Mr. Marcus Kline, director of Freedom Home Academy. The importance of words, being careful, precise, strategic with what you say, how you say it, when you say it, cannot be overstated. I also wanted to touch on some of the curriculum. I've seen some of your students, brilliant little folks, as I said, next generation of black scholars. You all have a rigorous academic curriculum set up for your students. Can you talk about some of the high expectations that you set for your students? You already talked about what you do with your CEDAR groups, and then as they grow older, you all do not have your first graders working on first grade material.
No. Everything. What I should say is the curriculum is assessment based. So when children come into the school, they're assessed. So we find out exactly what level they're on, whether it be science, math, reading, or grammar. And once we figure out the assessment level, that's when we put them in a particular class. So our classes aren't based on age or grade; they're based on their ability. So that allows our children to move upward rapidly. So once they, every Friday is assessment day. So if they're assessed, and their assessment is 95% or more, they move up to the next level. That's how we're able to have 5th graders doing 3rd, 4th grade multiplication and customary measurements, long division, things of that nature. So once they're able to, complete a level successfully, we can quickly move them up. And that goes for the languages, Spanish, French, Swahili, and Latin. We also offer piano, violin, that's private lessons. What else? The anatomy, it's anatomy class. We do chemistry. We even do a biology for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. What else? Grammar, vocabulary. We do Tai Chi. We do yoga. We do, I always miss some courses. Science and chemistry. Tai Chi. Do a advanced form of martial arts, which is Tai Chi, VSK. And that's taught by Brother Anthony Muhammad, who's a private security for Mr. Farrakhan. So he comes and teaches his dojo teaches the jiu-jitsu. Parents like that. My son is also in it too, so I like it too, but it's rigorous as well. Half the students take it. That's a little extracurricular. They do tennis. We have a basketball team that travel. It's AAU team for 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. So we kind of pile on a lot. We did a partnership with Northwestern in Evanston where we take some children to a class that they have. That's a gifted program that Northwestern sponsors. We take children there, and we do every summer we take children to Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge for a programming class that Harvard sponsors, MIT. Last summer was our first summer we did that. Stanford University has a nice online gifted program called EPGY.com if some of the parents are interested. It's a very good enrichment program that's done online. So we try to offer the parents as much as we can because of, we really don't have a lot of space to do a lot of things. So we offer them a lot of extracurricular activities outside of school. And we bus to those programs and we pick up and drop off and things of that nature. But since we're very untraditional, we try to give, like I was mentioning before, overcompensating. Just a prime example. We try to give the children and the parents a lot with the program. And a lot of that stuff is included in our fees.
Phenomenal. How since you all have been doing this and having such a rigorous curriculum, how do the students respond to being challenged? There's sometimes there is some children gravitate to the program and become inculcated slower than others. But I think the most important thing is even when they don't do exceptional, since the program is very accelerated, to me, on our standards, that child may not be doing accelerated work. Even when he's not, he's still doing his grade level. So he's still at grade. So sometimes it takes those particular children longer, but since we have a smaller class size, our largest class size is mine. That's 17 children, and that's the largest in the school. I have time to figure out exactly what that child needs. So a file is created for him or her. So we have a longer, I should say, shelf life, because that child sometimes may take him or her 5 months to learn the 600 words, when it took the other little brother 2 months. But in 2 months, the one who didn't learn the 6, he learned 300. So he's 4 with a vocabulary of 300 words, and he's reading at 2nd grade level. So he isn't doing the exceptional work as one may, but he's still doing work that's putting him at his level, and sometimes further than that. So we guarantee to the parents, when parents come in, we guarantee them, if I got 3 months, your child being here in school every day for 3 months, I can guarantee 1 whole grade reading in 3 months. We do that for all the children, because again, they do the reading and the grammar and math 3 times a day, twice in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, and we end at 6. We start at 9. So we have a lot of time. And it's interesting, Chicago Public School System just added 1 hour and 45 minutes to their day. Some of the parents, we were laughing today, like Freedom Home Academy, we just pushed the envelope. Wow.
Yeah. So we just going that full day. I mean, we can just pile on so much, but I have to remember sometimes that they do need play. They do need an outlet to express themselves. So we have to stay on the play team too. The exercising and the basketball. That's all good too. I was stuck on one thing my first 3 years. I was just like, You could play at home. We going 8 hours, no nap. We going 8 hours just work. My first 3 years, but like I say, I've learned over the years to, of course, have more patience and that balance. Understand that balance too is important.
Context of white supremacy. Folks out there, if y'all have questions, I know we have parents listen to the program. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943 pound. Press *6 if you dial that line, and if you're on the free HD line, it is *8 if you have a question for Mr. Marcus Kline. Very impressive. Again, the address, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. Before I move forward, I do see some hands already. 909, did you have a question for Mr. Kline? Your line should be open, sir.
Yeah. Can I be heard?
Shooby-doo.
Yeah, greetings. Your school sounds great. When you were talking about the images on the shirts, I was thinking, what do you think about maybe bringing somebody in that makes T-shirts, and like you can do silk screen, stencils, and heat press. Like those are different ways you can make T-shirts. And I was thinking that could teach them some skills and provide shirts for themselves. Like that seems to be a need, and then you could make money and fulfill that need.
Oh yeah, I'm writing that down now, but I like that idea. I like that. Administer that with a class or something. That can be in our class. Silk screen and T-shirts with our images on them. Yeah, I'm writing that down. That's a good idea. One of the parents thought of that being a fundraiser idea, but not that in particular, just selling the T-shirts. But I like that idea of having children do it, having some of the students do it. Yep, it's a good idea, bro. Gratitude.
They make good workers out there. Young people.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'll be motivated. They'll be motivated to sell.
Right.
Yeah, they made them definitely. Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
What do you think about the incorporating the drum? I know you said it was like an African-centered school. I was going to ask you about your music program.
Yeah, we do African dance. That's the extent of it. We do the sisters African dance class. But we use the drum, not in a particular framework. But if I'm doing class and I want to, because my teaching methods, I use music. Sometimes I make raps. I do things that children consider cool. Sometimes I bring the drum out. But for a structured music class, we don't use the drum. Or we don't have a structured music class, I should say. You got an idea for something?
Oh yeah, I teach drum. I just think that the drum, the history of it, and that's
Absolutely.
another black invention. You know what I mean? And,
yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, I get it. I use it, but we don't really have time for a music class. But one of the parents is a heavy. He considers himself a heavy musician, and he always is trying to get himself in on teaching a class. So yeah, but that drum, I agree with that. I would agree with that. That drum definitely, and it brings a certain energy when it comes out. It's like, man, the children just go crazy when they hear it. But yeah, I like that. They do it. Serious. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know you do it. Yeah, so I'm sure you know. But yeah.
Yeah, keep up the good work, man. It sounds excellent.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man.
All right.
All right.
good to hear from you, 909. I'll check out for other callers as well. I did want to ask, I guess, just about transitioning. If you have students who come from public school system and then they're transitioning to your school, like what are some of the major obstacles that you have to encounter when students are making that transition?
The most important is reading. I mean, the reading. What they're doing now with the reading in the system, the children, first of all, the parents are told their children can read, right? So they're showing me, upon entering my school, they're showing me past grades, reading assignments, math assignments, and whatnot. So I'm looking at it, the little guy was on the honor roll, right, for instance. His grades are showing he's getting A's. He's getting A's in reading, right? So the parent automatically says to me, oh, my son is an excellent reader. Look, he got all A's. But what the system is doing, they're being graded at their level for reading. Now, if he's reading on the 3rd grade level and he's in the 5th grade, he's getting A's in reading on 3rd grade reading levels, right? So when he takes we're in Illinois, when he takes his ISAT, he's 99 percentile on the ISAT because the ISAT is lowering its standards every couple of years because the more 99 percentiles scores, the school gets money for those, right? So when they don't get that amount, the children that's not getting those 99 percentiles, that's bringing their school scores down, guess where they're putting those children? They're putting them in special ed. The special ed classes, what you would think the special ed classes would have, children that have mental deficiencies and whatnot, no. Special ed classes now are for children who can't make those scores. The reason I know this, we have two principals who are parents that tell me how those special ed classes are filled up. And for those brothers that have disciplinary issues, sometimes they don't like how these white instructors talking to them, and they give pushback. Guess where they're sent? They're sent to the special ed as well, because the special ed, for every special ed child a public school gets, guess how much money they get for each one? Almost $10,000 per head. So it would benefit the school to have more children in the special ed department, right? Now, the problem that I'm getting is the reading levels. When we come in, when they come into our school, if the reading level is said is 5th grade, it's actually not, because the children are now learning to memorize words and they have no historical background on how to break down words phonetically. So they really can't read. If they're given a word that they've never seen before, they can't break it down phonetically. So that's the problem that I'm getting from children coming in, right? So, but like I said, the reading, the older the child is, the longer it's going to take me to get them to learn phonics and how to break these words down. Because our pre-Ks, our first graders, they learn phonics and they learn sight words simultaneously. And that's the argument. And that's the argument. You know, the older instructors, they believe that children should learn sight. That's No Child Left Behind. Teach the sight words, right? Phonetics, children should learn phonetics after the 5th grade. That's what's been told to me. Reading some of their materials, that's what they believe. So we come from, we put it right in the middle. We say phonics and we say sight simultaneously. And we believe that children can learn the phonics and the sight simultaneously. And they are. So to answer your question, the problem I'm getting is reading. And the parents are sold on these tests, brother. The parents are sold, lock, stock, and barrel. Once an instructor tells them their child can read, 90% of our parents, I'm just saying from what I see. I'm not making blanket indictments. I'm saying from what I see coming in. The parents are sold. Oh, my son can read. Well, how do you know, sis? Oh, he got an A in reading. Bingo. That's all they need to see. Give them a New York Times newspaper. Man, it's like reading Spanish. And these is what 7th and 8th graders that I have. You know, and that brings me to say this too. I had to change my approach. See, my thinking initially was every child we get, they going to college, right? The first 3 years. Man, Harvard, Howard, whatever, we going to college, right? But what I'm finding is when I'm getting children coming in the 7th grade, can't read. Getting children 8th grade. I got a couple of 8th graders, can't read. I don't have enough time. College is not going to be a viable option for them, brother. And I'm saying this not to have a defeatist attitude, but college, entrepreneurship, and a trade. We had to create a 3-pronged approach because 7th grade, we in the fall, so he has a year before he needs to take his test to get into high school. Man, you know what kind of high school we going to have the options for. And when he goes to one of them high schools, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to be able to go to a Tier 1 university. So those are some of the problems that we're facing with entering children over past the 5th grade. If they're under the 5th grade, we got plenty of time. But 5th grade seems like it's that age where, you know, black boys obsolete, instruction kill black boys. It's in that too. He talks about how the 5th grade is that age where they lose that spark for learning. So I'm definitely seeing that. Hope I answered that question. I was kind of long-winded.
I appreciate the details, sir. Absolutely. I wanted to follow up. Number one, Walking Bear, if you're listening, please shoot me an email. I would appreciate it. My email is untiljustice@gmail.com. I wanted to follow up, and this goes back to the very beginning of the program, words, very important, language, communication skills. You were talking about the disconnect, and I think a part of that disconnect and being able to truly grasp, like I think Dr. Kanban, he talks about there's a difference between knowing something and understanding something. And I think a lot of that is language communication deficiencies that we have. And I think a lot of it starts very early, exactly what you just laid out with those reading skills. And if you don't get those reading skills early on, it can really cripple your ability to think, because a lot of our thinking is structured around language. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, if you're seeing a correlation between what you just laid out for us.
I agree. Now, when we talk about language and when we talk about articulating that language, SATs, ACTs, whose scores are going significantly downward? Whites and us. Latinos, they're up. Asians, they're up. We have an inability to articulate ourselves with verbal language and especially with the written language. And I think, and I've been saying this, the texting is not helping. The texting is not helping. We tell the children, you can't bring phones into school. I had to waiver on that. So they texting in the bathroom and they texting at home, and I can see when they're writing assignments, the correlation between some of the things that they express on paper is almost the same, if not exactly the same, as what they're texting. So the texting isn't helping the written word, and we know how important words is. I mean, even if we just discuss the SAT and the ACT, how important passing and doing well on that particular test in the writing area. That can be a significant difference in you getting into a good school and a mediocre school. So the word is definitely, and they understand that. I mean, the number of prison beds is dictated by 5th grade reading levels. And that's a fact. USA Today ran the piece. So the state and the establishment, they understand as well how important reading levels is, how important it is for us to articulate ourselves with the written word. So, yeah, it's no secret. They're clear on it. We need to get clear.
Wow. I am not surprised at all how the texting, I think 909 has touched on before, about how the message is the medium and how different ways of communicating can alter the way that you use language, and people doing LOL and that sort of thing, that ends up becoming a standard way of speaking and communicating. And it really, I think 909, he was saying that it restricts the number. If you think of words as tools, you have fewer tools, and the tools that you have are a lot more crude with regards to your ability to think. If all you've been doing is texting and LOL this and I guess what is the shaking my head, whatever that is.
I know. Yeah. I try to, I try to stay on top. I try to stay on top of them, right? Because sometimes I grab my students' phones and I grab them and look at them. So I want to know what they mean. So I ask my son. He's like, I don't know. Because he don't have a phone. We don't have a phone. So I asked my wife, okay, what does this mean? So that means so and so. So yeah, I try to stay on top of it. I gotta be able to read what they're saying and be able to understand what they're saying. Yeah. So yeah, but you're right, man. I agree with you 100%.
Very important context of white supremacy. I'll check out for other folks who have questions as well. 909, did you have a question? Because I know you've touched on that before. 909.
Yeah, I was thinking, they call writing and speaking like the active literacies, and it's important, especially if you want to, convey a message and get people on your side. The best ways to do that is through speech and writing.
Right.
If you can make yourself understood and people can understand you, and the lame person, the layman person being able to explain what you're saying and make it clear, that's very important. So I was thinking though, wouldn't it be just different type? Wouldn't it be just if they're actively speaking and writing, if they're doing it enough, wouldn't they improve rapidly just by doing it actively? I mean, as far as with the phonics and whatnot, reading, just wouldn't that strengthen the muscle?
What? Ask me that again. I didn't get that. Well, what strengthen the muscle? Texting or writing?
Actively speaking and writing. Wouldn't that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying to combat that. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a lot of writing done at school from even the 4-year-olds. They write early, so it's a lot of writing, and it's a lot of speaking. They do a lot of speaking as well. But I think too, that's why that whole boarding school thing. I mean, my wife and I, we joke around with it, but we need the boarding, because when they leave me at 6:30, they had 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours at home just to do knucklehead stuff, and some of that is just playing the video games. Even though they tell me, "How about Marcus? I only play video games on the weekend," but the video game play has a lot to do with the attention span when they come to class the next day. The television, if you look at the rate of the flashes on the screen. It has a lot to do, scientifically, it has a lot to do with the attention span. We already talked about the texting, the cell phone, all those things. We talked about words being tools, and if you don't have enough tools, you're crippled, like you just said. So I think, we definitely try to combat that by, as you say, strengthening that with reading and with writing and reading. But man, when they get home, man, I mean,
you know what I found?
Friday night.
Something that I found that was really helpful is like, okay, one of the top colleges, in the United States is a college that basically lets the student write their own curriculum. And something that I found, you can, with children is that, like, if you can, it's hard to do, but like if you see them as individual curriculums and basically let them write their own curriculums. One thing, that if they're interested in something and you find out exactly what they want to do with their life and get them to kind of, articulate that, and then give them material to make that,
to supplement,
make that happen. So they get interested, and then they absorb that material. It's something that they want to read. You feel what I'm saying? But see, that little intervention as a parent or as an adult, letting them know, okay, let me let you know what you're gonna need to do if you want to do that. And that's where our role comes in, is to supplement that what they don't see or don't know, and then they take it from there. And I found that they'll run with it, and definitely you'll find like somebody that didn't want to read. Now
he's reading.
Now he's reading a lot. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So when they would choose the curriculum, you just gave them a framework. You put in front of them 25 courses, then they say, well, this is what I want, or you saying they go from the top of their head?
Well, something that they want, that they express what they want to do with their life, and you just supplement the material. You let them know how to get
I got you. Okay, I like that. Okay, yeah, I see that.
And give them the material. Let them, some of the top, guys in the field and whatnot, because they really don't know.
I like. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that. I'm thinking of my son immediately, because I know what he had picked off the top. He's really into science, man. The science and anything sci-fi. That's what he liked. So sometimes I give him the Garvey, right? So he was supposed to read Philosophy of Opinion. So he reading it. So I say, well, man, where you at now in the book? He put it down. He started reading another piece, some crazy science fiction book, right? So I'm like, what happened to the Philosophy of Opinion? He was like, Garvey will be here. So I'm like, man, so when you told me that, when you just suggested that to me, I automatically flashed back to like the children, man. They're very creative at school. So I don't know. They come up with all kind of stuff. Ain't no telling what they'll come up with. So, but that's a good idea, though. I like that idea.
It's proven to work, and it makes your job a lot easier. You know what I mean? Because it's like, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like I said, we man, educate. I don't know what you're doing. It's kind of like what my family's been doing for a while. Educating the youth and stuff like that. And
where you at?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, you're in LA. Okay, all right.
And I went to a black private school, but it wasn't really. It was, it was just black people. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like.
What's up with the Garvey school out there, Anya and Palmer?
I heard some good things.
School?
I heard some good things about it.
Yeah. I know he was kind of, Steve Coakley. Steve Coakley passed away last night.
Oh, wow.
It was Steve Coakley, yeah, but
I just heard him on the radio. He was out here, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He just was saying that he was out the hospital. Yeah, I didn't.
He was at the hospital, right. He was on life support. Yeah. I just got word a few hours ago. He passed he made a transition last night. So, man, but yeah, I gotta help my son finish his homework, man. So, I would love to come back on the show, brother, if you allow me to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of folks out, listeners, they might have just been enjoying the conversation, but yeah, I'm sure folks would have questions and would like to get more information. I know we have people that are listening in the Chicago area, so absolutely, anytime we could have you back on, it would be a pleasure.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Marcus Kline, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. Please visit the website and support. We appreciate some of your time, and hey, thank you going out to do his fatherly duties. We definitely commend that, sir.
Yeah, you over here looking at me crazy. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, you looking at me crazy. Thanks, 909, man. Gratitude, brother. I appreciate it.
Enjoy your evening, sir. We'll be in touch.
All right, talk to you. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Context of white supremacy, y'all should have got hands up sooner. See that? We'll take a quick commercial break. I'll be right back. If anybody has any thoughts they want to get in before we wrap things up, quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Context of white supremacy. Again, the address, anyone interested in getting more material about Mr. Marcus Kline and Freedom Home Academy, freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. Excellent material. I was saying, sign me up. I should be a student there. Sign me up. Outstanding efforts. And again, to remind folks, explore alternatives to sending your children to white people's institutes of academics. Probably not the best condition, probably not the best decision under these circumstances. We could all go back and recount our own experiences there, plus you're hearing information every day about little Johnny being molested, white people going and shooting the schools up, the incident in Ohio just a couple weeks back. They had an incident out here too where a little white child went and shot a little small, I think 9-year-old non-white female. Every day under racism, white supremacy. I will say again, the folks who, have some concerns, maybe I won't be up to par as an instructor. Maybe I'm not informed enough to properly educate my child. If you don't think you can measure up to the standards that racist man and racist woman have set for your child, you can always send them back. And I'll say that again just to emphasize the point. If you don't think you can measure up to the standards that racist man and racist woman have set for your child, you can always send them back. Look for alternatives. If you're not in the Illinois area, that's where Freedom Home Academy is, down in Louisiana. We had Dr. Kamara on with Kamali Academy. We've had others, the folks down in the Houston area. I'm going to mess the last name up. Bandelas. Male and female, black couple, started their own school down there. We had them on the program in 2010. Hopefully we can have them back on soon to see what they've been up to. But look for alternatives. I know Dr. Baruti, they have their school down in Georgia. See if there are options that are close to where you are. If you feel like you'd rather have some resources, some black people that have an independent school set up, if you'd rather have that, if you feel like you don't have the time or the expertise to instruct your child yourself. But that should be part of your duty, part of your responsibility as a black attempted parent under these conditions. Do everything that you possibly can to not have to send your child to white people's schools. You already know how that's going to work out. You can look at your own experience, how it worked out for you. And I'll end there. We'll be back tomorrow. In fact, terrorism at Ohio State. They had the Black Cultural Center got spray painted with "Long Live Zimmerman." This happened last week up at the Ohio State University. The Black Student Association will have students from that group. They'll be visiting us tomorrow evening. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Should be several students from the Black Student Association visiting us tomorrow evening. We should have 2 programs tomorrow. We should also have Mr. Michael Anderson. He is a non-white male member of Sovereignty Union in Australia. He should be visiting with us tomorrow evening. It'll be Saturday for him. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be technically 1 a.m. Saturday morning. If you're on the West Coast, it'll be 10 p.m. Pacific. Because of the huge time difference between Australia and the West Coast, that's why the program will be on at such a strange time. But Michael Anderson joining us live from Australia tomorrow evening, late show. The compensatory call-in this Saturday will be discussing Yurugu, Dr. Marimba Ani, lots of broadcasts staying active, sharing constructive information. If any folks have anything they would like to share before we conclude the program, feel free. I know 909, your line should be open, and our caller in Brooklyn, your line should be open as well if you had anything you all wanted to share before we conclude.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I was just thinking there's a need for schools like that. And, the information, is out there, kind of letting you know what you need to do. Like, it's just a minimum. Like, it's not hard if, we get in the way of young people's learning. So, if we don't get in the way of their learning and we just supplement, some of the things that they might not know at the time or understand, they're gonna be very intelligent people. So, I just think that I think that there's a big need, and it seems like people will be able to make some money also, having these schools. I know private schools are very expensive, like Catholic schools and just other private schools. A lot of them, so-called, advanced schools or whatnot, that they're not really teaching correctly. So, people pay for these schools. So if you can have a competitive type of price and do it, and have a curriculum and an understanding of child development, seems like now's the time for that. It'd be a pretty smart thing to do.
Absolutely. I'm just double checking the line as well. Caller in Brooklyn, I'm opening your line up. I'm not sure. Should be open if you had a comment. But yeah, 909, I agree 1,000%. This is definitely the time. And the white people are making your job easy. Super easy. They're showing you every day. Look at what's going on in their school system. Dr. Welsing just talked about that on Sunday, and saying the trauma where she talks to students, some of the first wave of black children who went into the racist school system, and all the trauma that they experienced, being tormented, terrorized, having things thrown at them. The anecdote she shared this past Sunday, black female had her head stuffed in a toilet with feces, and then they would not allow her to go home to take a shower and clean her hair out, change her clothes. So she had to endure that for a whole day. They're making your job easy with regards to, hey, this is something black people need. The alternative is loathsome. The alternative should be unconscionable to have, and really you can just think of it on a personal level. I don't think any black person, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, I don't think any black person can say that their experience in white people's school system was anything to be proud of, anything that they would want to subject any black person, much less their own offspring. I would not want my offspring to endure what I had to suffer through for 18 years, 14 years, 15 years, whatever it is, not for one day. So I would totally agree. We should really be, even if it's not you, even if you say, I don't think I can do it, but I am going to find an alternative. If there are people that are doing that in my community, bam, I'm going to send my child there. It is imperative. I would say it is a major part of your counter-racist duty. People talk about those 200 questions you're supposed to ask before you hit the bedroom with another non-white female. That should be a major component. As children frequently are produced as a result of sexual intercourse, what are we going to do to educate our child? How are we going to counter sending them to racist institution to be mutilated mentally, physically, the whole nine? What are we going to do? Already have that planned out. And if you're not having that conversation, I would say you are derelict in your counter racist duties. I'm assuming Brooklyn. I'm not sure if you do have something you want to share, caller in Brooklyn. If you do have something that you want to share, I'm not sure your line is not cooperating. You might need to hang up and dial back in. I've tried several times and it keeps muting again. So if you do have something you want to share, just hang up, dial back in, and put your hand up. As I said, we'll be back 2 programs tomorrow. First one starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, and the next one will 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. The Black Student Association from The Ohio State University. And the second one will be at, I guess technically Saturday morning, 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening with the non-white male, Mr. Michael Anderson in Australia, talking about racism, white supremacy, different part of the plantation planet. Also wanted to get in, you heard a lot from Mr. Kline about the importance of patience and being strategic, precise with the words that you use. I will echo that. I think it is a critical time. I mean, any time under white supremacy is critical, but I think especially now, critical. You've got so many widely publicized events of white supremacy terrorism, and it's pushing a lot of people to be very emotional and to get angry. I think this is a crucial time to be precise with our words, with what we say, how we say it. I mean, it's always important, but especially so now, because I think you're going to just see a lot of people functioning in a very emotional manner, reacting to things that they're seeing on the news and these cases and what's going on, people being prosecuted or not prosecuted. People are going to be responding with a lot of emotion. And I think it's important just to be mindful of that, just being codified. You know, we talk about that all the time. I think now is the time to really be disciplined about being codified. Some of the recommendations I would give out, number one, really having in mind that suggestion of being mindful about criticizing and scrutinizing other non-white people for how they respond to the system of white supremacy, really being mindful about that. I don't think this is a time where we want to engage in or produce a lot of unnecessary conflict with other non-white people about the way they are responding to racist man, racist woman, racist child. Really be mindful about that. I would also say with regards to words, and this is, I've noticed this for a while, where people will say that they don't like something that someone said. I would be mindful of that. Really just, and it's all in the interest of minimizing conflict. I really try to focus on if what the person said is accurate, because sometimes people will say things that are accurate, even though it's not necessarily likable what they said. Really be mindful of that. And I try to stay away from that, just commenting about things that I don't like that other non-white people said, because non-white people say things that I don't like all the time. That's par for the course. So I really don't get upset about that. I really try to stay focused on, did the person say something that was accurate? Was it true what they said? If it wasn't, then maybe I'll address it as, I think what you just said, I don't think that's accurate. Let's investigate to make sure it was accurate. And for myself, the same way. If something I said was not accurate, then let's investigate to make sure. But if it's, I just don't like what the person said, I think that's different. And I would say under these conditions, it might not be the best investment of time and energy to focus on what you don't like about what a non-white person said in response to white supremacy. That would be another suggestion throwing out. And again, these are just suggestions. You know, if you don't agree, have at it. Take your own course. We're all supposed to be doing independent thinking about how best to go about solving this problem. Just suggestions. And I would also say, this would be my final suggestion. I think there's going to be a lot. I'm already seeing it, but I suspect there's going to be a lot more talk where non-white people are being encouraged to, quote unquote, step up. And what I mean in this context, step up, some sort of violent response to racist man, racist woman, I would be very cautious about that sort of thing, as I've said repeatedly, and that's going to be one of my major messages for the rest of the year. I would be very cautious about that sort of thing. You're seeing folks, they put it on my page, Mike Tyson coming out and saying, it's a disgrace that George Zimmerman has not been shot. Now, Mike Tyson, he said what he said, putting it in practice. He said what he said, but I'm just using that as an illustration. White people are going to be giving, I think, more and more attention to black people who are saying things like this. They want some sort of violent response, in my view. They are trying to provoke this sort of disorganized, fabricated social disorder, exactly what Dr. Umar Abdullah Johnson shared with us at the end of 2011. I would be very cautious, because I think the words that are going to be used, it's going to be to insult your manhood. You're a coward. You're afraid. You're scared. Those are the type of words, rhetoric, really, that I think there's going to be a litany, a profuse amount of this. We're tired of these no good coward Negroes. If you're scared of white people, get to the side. We need men to step up and defend our babies. They're shooting black babies in the street, black children in the street, and we're going to show these crackers. You're going to hear, I suspect, an increasing amount of this sort of rhetoric. And I suspect white people are going to egg this on. People talk about, and I'm not getting into a whole lot of this, but I've heard a lot of people talk about agents. Again, if you study what happened during the so-called civil rights movement, white people were paying black people to go out and say these sort of incendiary things, only to be waiting. We will encourage them to run this direction, and we'll be waiting at the finish line to bang them up. And they did that to perfection in the 1960s and 70s. There are tons of it. If you want a film illustration, all power to the people. Excellent documentary film about the way they brutalized, in short order, the Black Panther Party. Really tons of black people who were working against racism, white supremacy, and a lot of it was encouraging criminal activity in response to racism, white supremacy. We'll get them to do something or suggest it or just flat out lie and say that they did it, and then bang, that will be our excuse to go hammer black people who have done nothing. Do not be fooled. This is just my word of caution, because there's going to be more and more of this sort of rhetoric to insult your manhood or your womanhood and say, we got to step up to these white people. Any sort of quote unquote stepping up should be well thought out. You should be thinking way down the road. Like, after we do whatever is being suggested, then what? Whatever you're suggesting, my question that should be asked, how is this going to improve things for black people? And this should be explained in detail. Whatever the suggestion is that we do, this will improve things for black people. How? And I would wait for a thorough explanation, thorough answer to that question. Thought out. I would want it thought out in detail. Whatever we're supposed to do to respond to racism, white supremacy, after we do this, what are we going to do the next day? And then 4 months down the road, and then a year down the road, the ramifications of whatever it is that is being suggested. I'm just saying this because, as I said, I think this is a very significant time. You're seeing racism, incidents of racism, white supremacy front page every day. White people control so-called media. They control the news outlets. Why do they have Mike Tyson or any other victim? Why are they broadcasting black people? This is a disgrace that George Zimmerman has not been shot. Why are they broadcasting that? And why now? Why is that front page material under racism, white supremacy? Just throwing it out there rhetorically. I will hush. I'll try Brooklyn again. If you have anything you would like to share, your line should be open, sir.
Yeah, man, Gus, you're right, man. You're absolutely right. You know what I was thinking when you said about the spray paint incident? Zimmerman is a hero. You know, he's a hero. So it's like I can just imagine him. You know, when he's going through the little process or wherever he is. You know, if he's around police or whatever, you know, they're probably saying, good job, man. You know. You know what I mean? He probably come out and say, you know, I got the support of the police. You know, they support me. They just, you know, they just said that they arrested me because, you know, whatever. But they always say, good job, man. You did it. You did what you're supposed to do. So I just see him as a hero, and yeah, that's just, I can see that. He has the support of his people, man. It's interesting. Long live Zimmerman. It's like, yeah, man. White people are like, I just could see them just like, yeah, that's right. You know, good job. Those are some good boys. Whoever wrote that, you know, get her done. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it's people like that, man. We don't want to be manipulated by them, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're good at what they do, but I still feel like we should know. We should not be falling for that at this point, man. I just don't want to say that we falling for that, and we getting played like that by these people are like blatant, and they're gonna be blatant and then still play us and try to be slick with their media. Man, I've seen like T-shirts where, you know, broadcast on the news. You know, well, you know, the white people are saying, oh yeah, they're wearing T-shirts that saying, you know, F crackers. Like that's what they telling people, man. You know what I'm saying? They act like it's just like, you know, a bunch of people doing this. I just seen one, but the way that they, you know, projected it was like this is it. This is what they're saying. F crackers. It's, you know, they're all on the street. So man, I just hope we're not gonna get played by. I don't think so, man. But it could happen, you know. So it's good to speak on it, let people know, to spread the word that this is a setup, man. You know, don't be no fool.
I tried again, caller in Brooklyn. Perhaps you should use the Ph.D. line if you really got something to say. But I tried again, and your line seems to not be opening for some reason. Not sure what the problem is. But yeah, I could be wrong. I would just say be mindful. You know, be on alert. There's a lot of craziness going on. White people are very good at instigating things. They're very good at that. In fact, I would even say it's in 1984. George Orwell talked about it. They will get you doing things that appear to be working against their system when actuality you're doing exactly what they want you to be doing, exactly what you want them to be doing for the next phase of their plan. White people are master deceivers. Just be on alert. That's what I'll say. We'll be back for 2 programs tomorrow. Caller in Brooklyn, if you had something to share and your line wasn't cooperating, write it down and share with us tomorrow. We'll be on for 2 programs, so you should have ample opportunity to share. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the broadcast. The websites for both of our guests, Henry Makow, racist suspect, SavesTheMales.ca or you can just do his name, henrymakow.com. Makow is Makow. Mr. Marcus Kline, director of Freedom Home Academy. It is freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. freedomhomeacademics.wordpress.com. We will be back tomorrow 2 times, hopefully constructive. Justice's email is justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the broadcast. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. We will be back. Lots of programs coming up. Read Yurugu. Looking forward to that this Saturday. Discussion on Yurugu. Dr. Marimba Ani. Read up on it. If you have questions or things that don't make sense, we'll try to deal with that this Saturday. Not me talking, it's the call-in, so hopefully people can call in who've read the book or know about the book, can call in and share their views. Looking forward to that this weekend. The prayer. Creator, it is time. It's been time, really. Help us get our act together and help us take the education of our children seriously. And I think evidence of black people taking the education of their children seriously, taking our education out of the hands of white people as much as possible, as long as we're under white supremacy. We will be back soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out.